Kak, hari ni ada tempe tak? She asked me, are you Indonesian? And then I'm like, no. Like, people should assimilate into like a national identity rather than race. The disclaimer should be out there that I'm speaking from my personal experience and I don't speak for the general Malaysian Chinese people.
Hi everyone, it's Selly and welcome back to my channel. Right now I have here with me my best friend from Malaysia. Her name is Daphne. I think some of you guys may probably heard her name before. She was in my channel like a long time ago. So actually, since Chinese New Year is coming up, I was just thinking why not we talk about something that is related to Chinese, because we're both Chinese but we're from different parts of the countries. She's from Malaysia and I'm from Indonesia. But first, let me just introduce my friend. So maybe you wanna introduce yourself first?
Hi, my name is Daphne and I'm from Penang, Malaysia. But we met in uni at Inti College.
So I'm gonna ask you a few questions, mainly about why Chinese Indonesia and why Chinese Malaysia is different, and like how can we be different, although we kind of, if you think about it, our ancestors, like the past generations, came from the same place. So it's kind of interesting, so let's just start talking about that. So first, why do you think Chinese in Malaysia can still speak Chinese?
I think it's because when the Chinese came, they didn't try to assimilate themselves into the Malaysian culture. Not say the Malaysian culture, but the local Malay culture.
Okay.
And because education to them is very important, and at that time, like, Chinese people built their own schools and had their own curriculum. So in a way, like, it promoted the use of Chinese language. Yeah, that's why Malaysians kind of speak more Chinese.
So they built Chinese schools.
Yeah, I mean, when they first came, everybody scraped and saved to survive and donated a lot to Chinese schools to like start their own schools. That's why.
And at the time, there was like no such regulations as like maybe how many Chinese schools can you build, or like you have to speak certain, like the national language or something like that. There is no such thing.
No, there's no regulation. I think maybe at like my grandparents' time, it started to be regulated.
Ah, okay. Then it became like what?
As of now, we have regulations, but before then, it's mostly like private schools. Yeah.
I think what makes it different is that last time there used to be a lot of Chinese schools over here as well, but then because of the regulations last time in like my dad's generation, a lot of people can't speak Chinese because of that. Like the government banned Chinese schools, and then I think you know the rest, right? I told you before.
Yeah.
Do you think it's important to still be able to speak Mandarin?
Yes, I think it's not to say like, oh, all Chinese should speak Chinese, but I think it's good to know like an extra language. May you be like from any other race, it's very important to like first understand the common language that you use on your daily and your own mother tongue, because it helps you connect to the culture better. Because sometimes meaning gets lost when you translate things.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
You know what? When I was a kid, my parents actually used to tell me all the time to try to learn Mandarin more, but then maybe because I just didn't get that, like how important like Mandarin is, so that's why I was just like, why should I learn this language, you know? For you, how did you have that like idea that, oh, learning Mandarin is actually important ever since like young?
I don't think it was a choice for me, because my first language was Cantonese. Like, they spoke Cantonese to me when I was young, and then Mandarin, and then English. It's like a mix of all, but like academically, I'm obviously better in English. But I can speak, I can read, I can write. It wasn't like, oh, I had a choice. It was just natural. Yeah.
Did your parents kind of like force you to like go to Chinese schools, or do you have a choice in terms of that?
It wasn't like forced. It was like, it's just expected that you're going to a Chinese school.
Alright.
For example, like my friends around me, most of us speak Chinese because we are expected to be in primary Chinese schools to learn, understand, and read. And if you want to stop learning Chinese after primary school, that's fine.
Ah, so at least you still be able to speak and understand the basics?
Yeah. Like that's the unspoken rule. I mean, in Penang that is, but in KL I think it's a different situation. Like there's certain Malaysian Chineses that speak Chinese and ignore English. Not a lot, but like don't prefer, and vice versa.
Yeah, I totally get it. If that's the case, do you still speak Chinese with your Chinese friends all the time?
Yeah, to a certain people I do, but like to friends who I speak to in English, then I speak to in English.
Yeah, but mostly I think Chinese Malaysians, they speak to other like Chinese Malaysians in Chinese, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, because like when I first came, a lot of people would just come up to me and speak to me straight away in Mandarin if they didn't know that I come from like another place. Yeah,
because I think like it's a sense of familiarity. Like when someone speaks the same language as you do, you feel a sense of comfort. And I feel that most Chinese people speak to their family in Chinese. So like if you can speak Chinese to like your peers, it feels a kind of like closeness.
Yeah.
Whereas
you have
like
a bond.
Yeah, whereas when we speak English, it's a bit like formal, or maybe that's the language that the person can only speak.
No choice. Okay.
Not really no choice. It's depending on the dynamics of the group.
You know, it's funny because I cannot really say that I relate to it. It's like I understand because I lived in Malaysia for like 4 years, but when it comes to like you guys speaking to like other Chinese with Mandarin, I can't really kind of relate because of course first I don't speak the language well, and also it's just like how you guys switch between like so many languages like in everyday basis. It's just like wow, you know. Because we don't do it here, that's why.
I think when you meet some Indonesian friends in Malaysia, you would automatically speak Indonesian, right?
Yes. If that's the case,
I think that's the same for like most Chinese people who speak the language well.
What about those that are like bananas? They don't speak
You mean
Chinese.
English educated people?
Yes, Chinese but English educated.
Yeah, then I guess like they wouldn't speak Chinese at all. Even if they do understand a little, they would still, in my opinion, they would still prefer to speak in English because it makes them more comfortable. Like you wouldn't like say something wrong or like imply a wrong meaning.
Yeah. So what about those if you like, let's say you speak to your Chinese friends who don't really speak Chinese? So is there that sense of bonding still, or there's like a different dynamic, or it's just like it doesn't matter?
For me, it doesn't matter because I'm comfortable with both, so it feels the same. But if I say like in general, like if it's a very Chinese educated person, you would certainly feel like a distance with people who just speak English.
Yeah, it's like you can't really connect well, right? See, but the good thing about like people like you is that you can, I would say, master different languages, and I think that's a really huge advantage. It's like you can get closer to people like from different backgrounds with having different cultures and language, of course. I sometimes envy Malaysian people for that, honestly.
Yeah, but one downside to it is like when we speak to probably primary school friends who like kind of speak the same dialects and language as you do, like it's hard not to like mix up your language, like rojak everything. So like in a sentence, there could be like phrases from different languages. So sometimes it's a bit chaotic.
But isn't that like the fun part in language? Like it doesn't matter as long as you can convey the message well, right?
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes it's just like difficult. Like I had to adjust a little because when I went to KL, like most of my friends don't speak Hokkien. It's like sometimes it's a joke, and then like you said it, and then you'll be like, wait a minute, they can't understand it, and then you have to like think very hard to like.
Yes. I totally understand. Some people don't really get it when I say like I just sometimes switch between like two languages because like Bahasa and English, they would say like, why are you like, we call it so English. So English, it's just like you're being very, how to say, it's like
Pretentious.
something like that. Okay, so if you can understand and speak English well, so what? You don't have to say it all the time. But for me, it's not like that. It's just more like you know? You just switch it automatically and think that it's a better way to explain it, you know? Yeah. So I hope through this video, more people will understand that sometimes we don't mean like, you know, to brag or to be, I don't know, to whatever negative things that you're thinking, but we're just being humans. It's hard to control our brain sometimes. It's just like easier to speak that way. Next, how about national language? How important do you think it is to be able to speak the national language fluently?
Like Bahasa Melayu.
Yeah, in your case, yes.
I would say like growing up, it wasn't that important to me because we had to do 3 languages in school, and I grew up in a more homogeneous society, which is like predominantly Chinese. So like nobody would actually use that as a communicative language in my community, I would say. So
I guess it's kind of the same like Mandarin to me, you know? Like we don't use it at all, so why should I learn it? It's something like that, right?
yeah, I only do it for like tests. I would say like writing wise, most of us are like okay, because we have to do it for the test. But like to use it informally, it's difficult.
Yeah, okay. It was back then, right? How about now?
I think like it has some importance, but I don't see it as part of my cultural identity.
It doesn't represent you, but it's important to be able to speak fluently. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like for working purposes.
For work purpose. Okay. How about like for Malaysians in general, like as a national language, or you actually think that it's better to speak in English with other Malaysians?
I think like even the national language is very different in regions. Like it's regional. Like someone in Kelantan may speak it differently from someone who speaks fluently in Penang. So like even if you speak like the standard national language, like it would still feel very robotic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like you can't blend in well still because you guys have different dialects. Is that what you mean?
It's the same, like the language stays the same, but it's like the terms that they use or like accents.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what is it because I've never used it informally. I think if I were to choose, I would say like English is more important because it brings you further. Because the only common language that people might understand is Indonesian people, like understanding bahasa.
Yes. Totally.
But it's still hard. Like even when you speak, it took me a while to understand. Yeah,
because I think it's still different, and you guys talk a lot more slower.
Yeah. My parents had like Indonesians working for them, so like sometimes like the bahasa that we use, it's only with the Indonesian people. So like
that's how like homogeneous the society in your area is like, right?
Yeah. Like that day when I went to Tapao at SJ Cafe. The Indonesian lady.
Yeah. Oh my god, I miss her food.
She asked me, are you Indonesian? And I'm like, no. And she's like, what are you still doing here? Where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Malaysia.
Wait, you spoke to her in Bahasa?
Yeah.
That's why.
Kak, hari ini ada tempe tak?
I miss her food.
Yeah, and then she's like, when you're going back? I'm like, besok saya akan balik Penang. Then she's like, oh Penang, orang Malaysia. I'm like, yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and she asked her, dari mana? gimana kayak? And I'm like, oh no.
Dari sini. So let's move on. What about assimilating? Do you think that Malaysia actually should do something similar to what like the Indonesian government did, or like you're completely opposed to it? Like, of course there are pros and cons, but like what do you think of it?
I've not like experienced the other, but I would say like the Indonesian government has done it very brutally, like to force Chinese and like immigrants to assimilate. Like it's more out of fear. But I think like to a certain extent, like people should assimilate into like a national identity rather than race. I would say like the best way to describe it is like the French. It's illegal for the government to like collect data about racial information and religion.
No identity like about, let's say, the cross symbol or whatever, hijab. It's something
like your ethnicity is not a public data.
It's your own privacy.
Yeah. We can say like, oh, I'm Malaysian instead of Malaysian Chinese. The forms that you fill in is a constant reminder that you're not just Malaysian.
You're Chinese Malaysian.
Yeah. You should like do it harmoniously. Like people have a choice whether they want to assimilate or not. And like in a way you become Malaysian instead of Malay. Like don't assimilate yourself into the local culture, but make it your own, like America.
Okay. Hi, uncle.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it should be your own choice.
From my perspective, of course, it shouldn't be that brutal. Yes, it should have been better. Like they shouldn't have done it that way, but yes, they're successful in terms of like assimilating between races. Yeah, there's no right and wrong answer in terms of this, because of course whatever's done is done. The result is that now, the now generations, we don't really bother to learn about our culture because we don't really identify ourselves with the culture, you know? It's just like I'm Indonesian, but I am Chinese, but I don't want to learn more about my Chinese past, you know? So that's, I think, the bad side to it. From your side, I think it's like the opposite, you know?
Yeah, but I would say like whatever that we practice here, it's very much different from China. As a community, we made it our own kind of tradition. In a way, we adapted.
Yeah,
that would be a better word.
We celebrate the same celebration, Chinese New Year, but we celebrate it like kind of differently. In Malaysia, you guys have a lot of off days, right, for the Chinese normally. Like you guys would visit a week, right? Like relatives all over the places, right? Yeah, you guys have longer holidays lah, in conclusion. Ours is just a day. And last time it used to be nothing, zero for us.
Wow.
Yeah, only because of the 98 tragedy. Yeah, we call it, that's the past. But of course, because of that, we have like one day off for Chinese New Year. Yay! And by the way, we're saying all these things, it's just for like open discussion. We don't mean to say rude things. If we did, we're sorry, but that's not our intention at all, because it's just like us two people talking casually, discussing about, you know, this. So I hope you guys don't spread any hate but love instead. You can exit this if you want to say. Okay, continue. The food, and then you hold it like that together, and then like
lo sang.
Lo sang, yeah, lo sang. Oh, I think we call it yi sang.
Yeah, it's yi sang. Lo sang. Lo is the action.
Oh,
lo sang.
Oh, yi sang is the term for that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but they don't do it in China though.
Oh, it's actually a Malaysian thing?
From what I heard, it's like some guy had a catering business in like Seremban, and like after the war, like there wasn't much that he could do to revive the business. So he invented this thing called yi sang. So it became like a practice that we have here and not China.
Okay, that's actually very interesting because we also don't really do it here. That's why when I came to Malaysia, they would say like we normally do this during Chinese New Year, like losang. Then I'm like, okay, I do this. And then what? Just like that? Yeah, and then you eat it, and then that's it. And then it's like a mess.
Yeah, like mostly it's like whenever they like do it, most of us do it very chaotically. But usually it's like they say like a blessing or like a phrase, and then you're like whoa, and everybody cheer. Like they say something and then everybody cheer. Like that's like ideally it should be that lah, but it's not that fun.
Lastly, what else you want to say?
The disclaimer should be out there that I'm speaking from my personal experience and I don't speak for the general Malaysian Chinese people because it's very different from one family to the other, like even in different regions.
I will put this in the front.
You should share your experience, but don't hate me for saying things that I said. You know?
Same, don't hate me for like bringing this up because we're just sharing our own experience and thoughts, and you may or may not agree with us. Yeah.
It baffles me that like some people choose not to speak it because it makes them feel cooler. I have some friends who choose not to learn the language because like the Chinese language because it's
okay.
Yeah, I speak English.
Yeah, all English, full English, and I'm way cooler than you.
Yeah, not say very westernized, but like aspiring to be westernized.
I can imagine.
I feel a bit like, oh, like, you know?
Because honestly saying, the perspective last time, why should I learn this language? That's the first. Second, Mandarin or like Chinese language are like kampungan or like yeah, you understand, right? Basically English is of course way cooler. Of course I should learn English much more. Why should I learn Mandarin? I totally get what you mean when you said that.
Personally, I think like learning a language helps you understand the culture and the people like very much more because it's more like how you perceive the thing. If you can't get like a first-hand understanding of what's happening, then you can't really have your own opinion. It's like always like a secondary resource or a translation.
Like you don't get the full meaning of it, right?
Yeah, like I can translate a joke for you, but it's not gonna be funny
Yeah. It's the same in like any other language.
Maybe it would be easier if we assimilated completely, but like it would remove so much opportunity if you were forced to let go of that language. Not say just language, but culture.
Yep. That's a good point. Okay, lastly, anything else you want to say to the viewers?
Learn as many languages as you can.
And of course,
you would change your mind.
Yep. And like learn more from other people with different backgrounds, right? And cultures. Yeah. Will open up your minds.
See everything with an open mind and you will be surprised with what you find.
Nice ending. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'd like to say thank you to Daphne for willing to be featured here on my channel. So please show support and follow her on Insta if you want. And that's it for today. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.